for having me at this panel and this distinguished institution. You can always tell the quality of an institution when they put sharpeners next to their pencils. I've never seen that before, so this must be an awesome institution. That's how I gauge things. It's very well thought through. What I'm going to talk about today is a little bit different in terms of spending time on the system of philanthropy and thinking about philanthropy as a marketplace, which maybe sounds very commercial, but you have people who want to allocate, provide resources to people in need, whether it's individuals, corporates, grant-making institutions, and you have beneficiaries on the extreme end, people actually who are in need and can benefit from programs, and in the middle you have operating foundations, nonprofits, and there's a whole big universe of these sort of social sector organizations. And I'll spend probably most of my time just talking about private giving, which is mostly, in my mind, individual giving, and how the philanthropy system, in a way, is failing individuals, and how we can perhaps improve that and overcome some of the challenges that individual donors face. I mean, there are a lot of overlapping challenges between institutions and individuals, but I'll probably spend most of my time talking about individuals. One thing, just at the outset, I'm new to this sector, and I observe, a lot of dogma that sort of crept into the sector, where people think that, there is a certain solution to poverty or illiteracy or disease, and I think it's sort of trend-based, where one decade it's like microfinance, now social venture capital, and I think all the organizations who are involved in philanthropy have good intentions. A lot of them do excellent work, but what we're trying to do is promote all types of philanthropy and enable it, whether it's microfinance, whether it's social venture capital, whether it's charity, whether it's corporate giving. We don't believe in a single silver bullet strategy, so we want to help encourage all of those things. I think, we could probably do a lot more good if a lot of these strategies worked in concert with one another. So you had, cash gifts, you had investments, you had microfinance. I think probably one of the biggest influencers on social change is government policy itself, education policy, social policies. So as a platform, and what we're trying to do at Goodgate is really trying to promote and enable all these kinds of philanthropy, whether it's religiously motivated, whether it's more commercially sustainable, whether it's microfinance or pure institutional giving. Whatever it is, we think all of those things are good, and we should promote all of those things. We don't have a preference for one or the other. So what I'll focus on is just three things. Number one, why is philanthropy important, and why should we care about it, especially in this region? Secondly, what are the challenges of philanthropy, and what are the pain points? And I use the word pain points because it's part of my background in software. But what are the challenges that individuals or grant makers face day to day in trying to become better philanthropists and make their contributions to society impactful? And the third thing is, what can we do to address and overcome some of those challenges and some of those pain points? That's what we do at Goodgate. I won't talk too much about Goodgate. I want to talk more about sort of the problems, and then the solutions become much more sort of self-evident. So the first thing is, why is philanthropy important? I think there's a lot of actually social science research that says that giving is actually innate in people's wiring, genetic wiring. It's pre-religion, pre-social conditioning, that even they've done research where infants have an altruistic instinct before they're even taught that giving is good or helping people is good. So I think it's very deeply ingrained in our nature as humans. In this region, the philanthropic culture, of course, is dominated by a religious imperative to give zakat or give sadaqah. And zakat is a mandatory requirement for practicing Muslims. So in Muslim societies like the UAE or many other Muslim societies around the world, as you get wealthier, the amount of money you give increases. So it's actually linked to your wealth, your eligible wealth to give zakat. And it's even calculating what you owe, because in Islamic sort of theology, or thinking about it, at a certain point of time, if you have excessive wealth, a certain portion of that becomes a legitimate claim of the poor on your wealth. So it's something that you have to give out. And so there is this imperative that Muslims have every year to give away substantial amounts of money. And as you get wealthier, that money becomes bigger and bigger. So if you have $1 million worth of eligible wealth, you have to give, say, $25,000. That's very hard to do person to person, cash, hand to hand. As you get wealthier and wealthier, if you look at someone like a Prince Al-Walid or some of the big merchant families or ruling families in the region, at some point it has to become institutional because it's just unscalable to disperse that much wealth, hand to hand in terms of cash disbursement. So it becomes institutionalized into foundations or al-Kaf. But al-Kaf wouldn't really necessarily capture your annual zakat requirement. The second reason it's important is it's a huge scale issue. So we're talking about tens of billions of dollars every year. And normally when you have that kind of scale money flowing around, the ecosystem emerges to help enable out and allocate that money. And that's where I see in this part of the world that ecosystem very nascent and somewhat underdeveloped, and that's what we're trying to develop. So if you look at, for example, the US, private giving is $300 billion a year. The 2008 number was $307 billion. It's gone down a bit in 2009. But to give you a sense, the $307 billion, $14 billion is from corporates like Citibank, JP Morgan, Microsoft, whatever. 23 is bequests, 23 billion people who died and leave money to charity. 41 billion is foundations, like the Gates Foundation, the Ford Foundation. And 229 billion is individuals. So that's a surprising number. It was surprising to me when I learned this. But if you look at it sort of in aggregate, it's 2% of US GDP, $300 billion a year. And most of it comes from people like us in this room, some wealthier, some not as wealthy. As a percentage of income, actually, lower income households give more than higher income households. So given that that's the scale that we're talking about, and I believe that it's the similar scale in the Muslim world, which is the area we focus on, how can we enable those individuals to make better giving decisions and allocate their philanthropy more strategically towards the most impactful causes that really make a difference? That's the problem and the puzzle we're trying to solve. The other reason philanthropy is important is that we have massive development challenges in this part of the world, in the Muslim world broadly, which is our focus area. If you look at a country like Japan, 1 out of 100 people cannot read or write. In the Muslim world, it's like 1 out of 3 people cannot read or write. So the scale of need is massive, whether it's health, education, literacy, anti-poverty initiatives. It's a huge ocean of need. And there's also a huge willingness and an institutional existing mechanism in our religion to give and help people who are less fortunate. But somehow that matchmaking between the people who want to give time, give money, and the people who need it, that's what we find at Goodgate. That's kind of my assessment, is it's not functioning as well as it could be. That's the problem we're trying to solve. Okay, so the basic pain points we're working on are things like, how do people find charities? How do you even identify what's out there? How do you figure out whom to trust? Which charities are doing good work? Which charities are really performing well? These are the kind of problems that we're focusing. So we're building solutions for individual donors to become better philanthropists. And our first product is addressing one part of the puzzle, which is how do I find charities? We've aggregated 1,400 charities on our platform. We want to grow that. So you can find up to 250 charities in Pakistan, 150 in Indonesia, 80 in Jordan, 62 in the UAE. But you have a starting point to start looking for stuff. The next problem we'll work on solving is how do you distinguish between the best, most impactful nonprofit organizations and the ones that are perhaps not as transparent, not as efficient, not as performance-oriented or accountable. So these are the kind of problems we're working on. We've identified 8 or 10 big problems that donors face. And if we help donors make better decisions, we'll indirectly help the social sector become more efficient, more performance-oriented, more transparent. And those are sort of tools, products, and services that we want to build.